Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero, who's just putting his headset on.
Put your headset on so we can hear you. And we are the FAIRtax Guys. That was kind of rough.
Little behind it. Well, you know, when you get to be my age, that happens.
So. Oh, well, we're coming to you from Big Daddy Studios in Gainesville, Florida. This is our recorded version, which is going to be streaming live. So the comments, you can still comment live on this as it streams, and we will be there to talk to you. But the video content is pre-recorded, and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today.
Oh, yeah.
We really do. Of course, we kind of went over the election results last week. And, of course, it's kind of a mixed bag. There's some that both sides can point to and say they're good. Hopefully, with the Congress being divided now between the Democrat and Republican parties, that there will be a more robust debate on the subject of tax reform that the president says he wants to do. And hopefully, if that reform is more robust discussion than we've been having, we can bring the fair tax into the equation. And if that happens, game over.
Yep, that's right. I forgot to start the timer, Bob.
That's all right. I can keep an eye on it. We're starting to...
I do want to reiterate, I had time before coming to the studio and doing our live show and then this show, all right? I had time to look at Florida and Georgia. And in Florida, in the House, everybody who co-sponsored the fair tax was reelected, and that includes the person who, now Ron DeSantis obviously is governor-elect, and the person who ran and successfully ran for his district is a fair tax pledgee, you might say. He has signed the fair tax pledge that should he be elected, he will co-sponsor. And his name is Michael Waltz.
Okay. One thing we forgot to do last time, we will need to again, is to invite people to write us at our email address, thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. We get some really good input on that thing. As a matter of fact, in the second part of the show today, we're going to get into some of the feedback we've received from various different avenues. And, of course, our Facebook page, too. The FAIRtax Guys has a Facebook page where you can leave a comment as well.
And we know we must be doing something right because we got our first hate mail.
Well, that's okay. We'll get into that a little bit later. But what I want to get into to start with, this is really important. The Tax Foundation. And I'm not really sure who those people are, but I guess they really get into the study of taxes. And they did a study on the various business climates in all of the various different states.
Yep.
And they identified the best 10 states to do business in. And the flip side of the course is the 10 worst states to do business in. And there's a remarkable correlation in there that we're going to get into.
Yeah. The name of the study is the 2019, so it's up to date, 2019 State Business Tax Climate Index. And it was a long, involved, many pages. There's an executive summary and so forth. But they identified the 10 best states to do business in and the 10 worst states to do business in. All right? And amazingly...
Pop quiz. What is the best state to do business in without looking at your sheet?
Well,
you already have this memorized.
I know, because I was surprised at number one.
All right, folks, we'll ask you. Who do you think the best one is? I'll give you 15 seconds to figure it out. Mm-hmm.
Now, in a previous FAIRtax Power Radio, we talked about the 9 states that do not have an income tax and how they stack up against the 9 states that have the highest income tax. And as you might guess, the 9 states that do not have an income tax, their economies do quite well. And the 9 states with the highest income tax, people are leaving there in droves. You know, like we have 1,000 people a day moving to Florida.
Okay, let's go through this. The 10 best states. I'll do the best ones and you do the worst ones, okay? The 10 best states to do business in, according to this Tax Foundation summary, Wyoming is number 1.
Yeah.
Now, when you think of business and industry and commerce and stuff, when I think of Wyoming, I think of wide open spaces and cattle ranches and, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, but
don't think of that as heavily industrialized.
And they do not have an income tax.
But Wyoming is the best state to do business in. Alaska, if you can stand the cold up there, Alaska is second best state to do business in. South Dakota is third. Now, of course, they've got this oil boom going on up there.
Yeah.
Number 4 is right here in Florida. I'm glad to see that.
Yep.
Montana, out there next to Wyoming, is 5th. New Hampshire, up in the northeast, is number 6. Oregon, way out on the other coast, is number 7. Utah is number 8. Nevada is number 9. And Indiana is the 10th best state to do business in. As you mentioned, there is something remarkable when you compare that list of the 10 best states to do business in with the states that don't have income taxes.
That's right. Yep. 6 of those 10 match our list of the 9 states without an income tax: Wyoming, Alaska, South Dakota, Florida, New Hampshire, and Nevada. Those states do not have income tax.
Note that's numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4. I mean, if this was NASCAR, we swept the first 2 rows, okay? Because they start 2 by 2 on the races out there. So numbers 1, 2, 4, 6, and 9.
Yep.
And the list of the Tax Foundation's 10 best states to do business in do not have a state income tax.
Now, the income tax is not the sole arbitrary of why it's due, because
there are other factors that go into this.
There's fees, and there's all kinds of fees and permits and regulations and so forth. So some states, even though they have an income tax, they may be very business friendly in terms of their business tax and their business regulations and their permitting regulations and things like that. So there are other things involved besides their tax situation. But it is interesting that 6 out of the 10 best states have no income tax.
Well, when you consider that one of the byproducts of having an income tax are just huge compliance costs.
Yeah.
More so on the federal level than on the state level, I would think. But compliance costs, money you have to spend to pay your accountants, to pay your tax attorneys, to keep your records, to actually fill in all the forms and stuff, that all the compliance costs that go along with an income tax, not very business friendly. And again, 6 of the 10 best states to do business in have no state income tax. And if we could make that work on the federal level, get rid of the income tax, have the fair tax, and so instead of going from states in the country, we'd go from countries in the world.
Yeah.
And the United States would be at the top of the best place in the world to do business if we could get rid of the income tax and replace it with a fair tax.
Yep. That's our goal here on FAIRtax Power Radio.
Okay, your side of the coin, the 10 worst places to do business. If you're going to start a business, do not move to
Vermont, Ohio, Minnesota, Louisiana, Iowa, Arkansas, Connecticut, New York, California, and New Jersey, in that order. That's from 41 to 50.
So New Jersey is the worst business climate in the country, according to the Tax Foundation, and they have got one of the highest state income taxes in the country. Do you think that's a coincidence?
Yep. 6 of those 10 are on our list of the states with the highest income tax. All right, so, there's a correlation there, too.
And those would be?
Those are Vermont, Minnesota, Iowa, New York, California, and New Jersey.
Now, look at this. On the 10 best states, numbers 1 through 4, Wyoming, Alaska, South Dakota, and Florida, the first 4 have no state income tax.
That's right.
And on the worst list, the 3 worst are on the worst income tax, highest income tax, state income tax in the country list. That is not a coincidence.
No, it's not. Because unfortunately, along with an state income tax, there usually go a lot of regulations and so forth, which would describe New York, California, and New Jersey.
Okay. Let's go ahead to the second page of this thing. Let's go and talk. You said there are several states with no income tax. 6 of them made it on the list. Alaska, Florida, Nevada, New Hampshire, South Dakota are on the list. Now, the other states that do not have a state income tax that didn't make the Tax Foundation's 10 best states, Tennessee, Texas, and Washington.
Yeah. And of course, this is the 9 states that don't have an income tax.
Yes.
So it's not, But Tennessee, I was surprised Tennessee and Texas weren't on there.
Yeah, me too. Those are good places to do business.
Because we heard from an accountant in Tennessee, and he was saying, he loved the show, and he was telling us how things going very nicely in Tennessee, and partially because they don't have an income tax.
We got to get Jade to dig into this on the next webinar or on our future webinar.
That would be good. Yeah.
Jade, of course, for those of you who haven't been keeping up with FAIRtax Power Radio, Jade Wally is a partner. I mean, really a high-powered accountant out in Colorado, works for one of the most prestigious accounting firms in the country. And he is a huge FAIRtax. He has read the bill. He has read a lot of the other supporting stuff. And he does our webinars now.
Yep, and that webinar will be coming up next month, December 20th.
So Jade, if you're watching, there's you an idea on what you can dig on.
Yeah. Also, this is an aside. As I was digging, we're going to be talking about input from people, and also on PopVox. I went on PopVox and talked about this. Let me save that for later. I'm sorry.
Let's finish up here. Let's trot out the 10 states with the highest income tax.
Oh, yeah.
Now, tell you what, let's see. You tell me who's got the highest income tax, and I'll tell you where they show up on the list.
Okay. The highest state income tax is California.
And they are
13.3 state income tax.
And they are the second worst place to do business in the country.
Yep. And then going down in as the income tax drops, Oregon, Minnesota, Iowa, New Jersey, Vermont, New York, Hawaii, and Wisconsin. All right.
Okay. Where's New Jersey on that list? New Jersey, the worst worst business climate in the country, according to the Tax Foundation, and they have what, the 5th highest income tax, state income tax in the country?
Just under 9% state income tax.
And New York, the 3rd worst place to do business in. They are, where are you? They're about what?
3rd from the bottom.
Okay.
Yep, they're just about on the bottom. Yep. So, and these folks, along with this income tax, I'm pretty sure that they all have a sales tax too. So they have income tax on top of their sales tax,
which is something you will not get with a FAIRtax. The FAIRtax, if the FAIRtax replaces the federal income tax, its permanent implementation is contingent upon repeal of the 16th Amendment. And when the 16th Amendment goes away, the constitutional authority to collect an income tax goes with it. They had to amend the Constitution to allow the federal government to collect an income tax, and the FAIRtax is not going to let that happen.
What a mistake that was, the 16th Amendment. 105 years ago. What a mistake. We got to do something about that.
So you talk about if you live in a state that's good to do business, what happens? Business comes in.
Yeah.
Lots of jobs, competition for workers, wages go up.
Yep.
It's always good to live in a state that is business friendly because business brings so many good things with it.
Yep. And like I said before, I heard somewhere on the radio or whatever like that, Florida has about 1,000 people a day moving here from states like California, New Jersey, New York, and so forth.
If your state has a tax system that's driving business away, jobs are going with them.
Yeah.
Mercy.
Yeah, people are voting with their feet. I also heard on the radio that Texas has about 1,000 people moving there a day. And for the same reasons, because it's a lot easier to do business in Texas. And when you do business, you have to hire people.
Yes.
So you need those people.
And then you need supporting people. You need the truckers and the railroaders to move your goods across. You need the computer people to keep track of it all.
And I can tell you, when I was driving truck, we did a lot of business out of Texas.
I bet.
Yep. So
okay. Well, now that we've gone over the best and worst places to do business and the correlation to the presence or absence and the degree of their income tax, we have plenty of time here. Got about 18 minutes here. We're going to get into some of the feedback that we have received. And again, we'd like to encourage you to write us at the FAIRtaxGuys@gmail.com or leave us a comment on your Facebook page. If you'd like to leave us a profanity-laced, expletive-filled thing like we actually did get the other day, and we're not going to mention that guy's name. We're not going to give him any publicity. But yeah, if you want to make a rational, reasoned argument against the FAIRtax, we would love to hear that. I don't think there's too much that can be done, but if you're just going to be ranting and raving, forget it. We're not going to pay you much attention.
We encourage you to actually study the FAIRtax instead of just maybe picking up hearsay or something.
But what we have figured out, when folks are just really ranting and raving and going off against the FAIRtax, they are ranting and raving and going off against the image in their mind of what they think the FAIRtax is.
Yeah.
When you hear the phrase, it's regressive, it hurts the poor, you know good and well they have no clue what the prebate is, how it works. They do not know what the FAIRtax is all about. Yep. So that's why we need to educate these folks rather than beat on them. But we did get some really interesting stuff, and there's some stuff on PopVox as well. You got a big pile of it there. Just dig in until we run out of time.
Well, I like this question. This is from Aaron Vanetta. Oh, I got one. How would the FAIRtax affect video games, new and used? Or subscriptions like Netflix, Hulu, HBO or Xbox Game Pass, okay? Randy answered him first and says subscriptions are services and would be taxed. Video games, when first released, first sold, would be a new good and it would be taxed, okay? So Aaron came back and said, okay, let's say a game is a month old and it goes on sale. Would it still get taxed, or how long is new? Because new can be 1 day, 1 week, or 1 month. All right, and also games aren't just on disc; they're digital as well, so you can download them.
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
It really is.
And I'm just curious, also with apps and other forms of software. Well, those are really good questions. You got a lot of questions. So I answered him and said, new means it has not been purchased yet. Okay.
Yeah.
For instance, I said, much like a car that is still on the dealer's lot and is last year's model. It's still new because nobody's bought it yet, all right, and has not purchased it. Digital media is a great question. It could be considered is it a product or a service? Well, yeah, I think even if you don't buy it on a disc or a cartridge or something, if you're downloading it from a store and you're paying for it, you're buying something.
That's the first time. If you give a copy to your friend, which is probably piracy or something.
Yeah, but that's another issue.
If you get it, if you buy it from somebody that has already played it, if you're getting it new from a store or from a dealer that has never been purchased by anyone else before, that's when the fair tax is applied. It is applied to all new goods and services. New meaning not pre-owned.
Yeah.
So if you're the first owner, you pay the tax. If you're the second, third, fourth, or fifth owner, you don't.
And everybody's gone online to buy DVDs. Like The Incredibles 2 just came out on DVD. Yeah. Anyways, we saw
I have
that.
no clue what that is.
Saw that with our grandchildren a long time ago. Anyways, you can go on eBay and buy used DVDs. Okay, well, they're used. They will not be subject to the fair tax because under the fair tax, once it's purchased, brand new, if you want to resell it, whether it's a DVD or a pickup truck, okay? If you buy a pickup truck, you will pay the fair tax on it, or any vehicle, and so forth.
If you're the first purchaser.
If you're the first purchaser of that item, all right? Even if it's been on the dealer's lot for a year, okay? It's still, if you're the first purchaser of that vehicle, it is new, and you will pay the fair tax. But when you have had it for a few years and you want to get a new one, and you decide to sell it instead of trade it in, okay, when you sell a used pickup truck, no fair tax.
Nope.
Okay, it'll be much simpler. So, and then when you go buy your new one, you're going to pay the fair tax again. So, that's up to you. And I think what's going to happen is that the value of used vehicles is going to come up because it's going to be attractive. Like, do I want to spend these extra few thousand on a new one, or do I want to buy a good used one? Well, that's something you can decide. But you will decide it, not somebody who will decide it for you.
Okay.
So, Aaron, we appreciate those questions, because it really made us think about it.
Yeah.
And this is the type of stuff that comes up.
So again, you can leave us a message at the FairtaxGuys@gmail.com, or you can leave us a message on the Fairtax Guys Facebook page. And if it's a thoughtful, well thought out question like Aaron's, we will definitely give you credit for asking it and address it here on FairTax Power Radio.
Yep. Then there's this other one. This is our hate mail.
Who we're not going to mention.
No. Blatant misinformation on the regressive nature of a consumption tax to replace the income tax.
You don't know who the prebate is.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, already he's indicated that he doesn't understand the fair tax. It's a bipartisan effort. This isn't a bipartisan effort. It's elitist, pro-establishment, special interest pile of steaming manure.
May I ask him one question? If it's a special interest thing, how come the lobbyists hate it?
Yeah. Why has it been
Why do all the special interests hate the fair tax if you think it is a special interest entity? It's not.
Yeah. So, if this is something that the deep state or whatever the establishment it's been in Congress since 1999. If they liked it, if they thought it was a good thing, if they thought it was good for them, they would have passed it. All right. So it's not a deep state, special interest, elitist type thing. No, it's not. This would almost entirely remove the tax burden from those who actually afford to give it back to the people that put them where the heck they are. And he didn't use heck.
Yes.
All right. So this is a mealy-mouthed bunch of BS because they say specifically that it untaxes only below the poverty level. It's unsurvivable, and he's got 18 to 20K. This would act as a regressive tax. No.
We did a show on this the other day where we showed the effect of the prebate on families at various different income levels. And the family that was just spending right at the poverty level, their tax rate is 0, meaning everything that's collected from them in fair tax at the cash register is reimbursed to them by the prebate. But the family that was just above the poverty level ended up paying an out-of-pocket tax rate of about 4% or something really low than that. And so this folks that are just above the poverty level or even kind of a little farther up into the middle class, you do not pay anywhere near the published 23% sales tax rate that the fair tax is, because the prebate gives you back a big chunk of what you pay at the cash register. And if you only count what you take out of your pocket to pay the fair tax with, i.e. the fair tax you pay that is not reimbursed by the prebate, and express that as a percentage of your total spending, those on the lower end of the scale pay a very, very low, as they say on Deal or No Deal, individual tax rate. And if you're up at the higher end of the end, you're spending $1 million a year, you're paying just about the entire 23% out of your own pocket. It is mathematically impossible not to pay your fair share with the fair tax. So obviously this guy just has not done his research.
No, he hasn't. And the other thing about the people in the lower income scale, all right, their tax rate, and the prebate and how that interacts and so forth, that assumes they spend 100% of their income on taxable items. They spend it on new goods and services. What if they buy a used car? What if they go to the Goodwill store and they buy used clothes? There's no fair tax on that. So that drops their tax rate even more. The working poor have a tremendous advantage under the fair tax, a terrific advantage. It is very good for the working poor. It's the best tax plan ever conceived for the working poor, bar none. And you've really got to get into it to understand that. I'm not sure if this person will ever do that.
When you consider that the fair tax makes the United States the most business-friendly place on the planet, jobs will spring up like dandelions in my yard in the middle of July, That you talk about the working poor needing a job, you'd have to hide under a rock to not find a job if the fair tax were the order. I think I'm through with this guy. Let's move on to some of the stuff that you've dug up on PopVox.
Yep.
Now, again, PopVox, PopVox is a website where you can go in and you can make comments for or against any piece of legislation that is before Congress, that's been introduced into the Congress. And you give them your name, your address, so they know what congressional district you're in. And we talked to Ted Yoho about this, the congressman in this district. Every single congressperson up there has at least one dedicated staff person to watching PopVox and seeing what their constituents back home are saying about various different pieces of legislation. And of course, the legislation that garners the most, attention are the ones that they'll pay attention to. So that's why we go in there to PopVox, POPVOX, especially after the new Congress convenes, and comment on the fair tax.
Yeah, and
your comment will be seen.
And I encourage you to do that now. As soon as this episode is over, go to PopVox and weigh in on H.R. 25 or S18. But keep in mind that in January, when the new Congress, new House of Representatives, and the new Senate is sworn in, we have to start all over again. PopVox will start anew, okay? So and we'll make sure you understand that. But PopVox is a great site to get your message across to Congress.
Here we go. This was a comment left on PopVox a couple years ago relative to
let
S18.
me tell people, I went into PopVox and I was looking only for the people who opposed the fair tax. First off, when you look at the fair tax on PopVox in the House, it's got like 97% positive responses.
Yeah, you had to dig deep to find some of this.
Yes, I did.
We're getting short on time here. Let's get into this. This lady says, I oppose S-18 Fair Tax of Act 2017 because this bill is not a fair tax for all Americans. It's a play on words, and that's all you say.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to argue with just an opinion with no facts backing it up.
Yeah, but it is a fair for all Americans.
How did the fair tax get its name in the first place? You remember that story?
Yeah.
When the economists that designed the fair tax first came up with it, it was not named the fair tax. That they really didn't have a name for it, and they were explaining it to some people.
Yeah.
And somebody said, "That's a fair tax."
Yeah. Yeah.
And the name stuck.
Bingo.
So just if you say it's not fair, it's a play on words. If you'd like to support that, we'd like to hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. So. And the next one here, this is also in, they're opposed to S-18, which is the Senate version of the fair tax. I oppose S-18 fair tax because fair tax proposals are regressive, okay? This person, again,
Same
as soon as they say that,
point.
you know something about them. You know they really have not done their homework. Designed to favor the very wealthy. No, it doesn't. It's the very wealthy that pay close to the 23%.
Out of their own pocket.
Yeah, whereas the working poor pay about, those living at the poverty level pay zero. Okay, very wealthy over other income tiers in our society. Our existing graduated income tax system better matches responsibility to people's ability to pay. Let me say this about the current system. Yeah, Congress has gone in and they've given different tax rates for higher level of incomes, but then what do?
Let me ask you one question. How much money is sitting offshore in tax shelters to evade the income tax?
Yeah,
do you think the working poor are doing that? No, the Learjet crowd is doing that.
Well, and plus, even though, the income tax does have higher level of taxes for upper income brackets, then there are all these loopholes.
Assuming you pay it.
Yeah.
If you hide your income offshore, we've been talking about this, evasion is rampant under the income tax. And the people that have the most to lose under the income tax system are the ones that are evading it the hardest.
So you got evasion, you've got legal avoidance. You can legally avoid paying taxes if you're very wealthy and you can afford some CPAs to dig into it. And find out, how can I structure my income and so forth, and what I do to reduce my income tax. They do that, and sometimes they structure it way down to almost zero. Legally, they do it legally. So if you can legally avoid paying the income tax, what good is that to the rest of us?
All right, let me run one more by you here because we're running out of time. This says, I oppose H.R. 25 because if poor people need assistance, they're out of luck. I do feel that the wealthy should be taxed to help the poor. They do not want to pay a living wage. Well, if the poor people need assistance, there are places other than the tax system where they can get it, for one thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, every state and every community has some kind of an agency like that, all right? But
where poor people are out of luck is when the payroll taxes take a big chunk out of their take-home pay.
Yeah.
And the fair tax gets rid of that. You bring home, the working poor, and everybody else for that matter, will bring home the full gross amount of your paycheck under the fair tax.
Yeah.
Fair tax taxes spending. It does not tax income. So if you work, 40 hours for $10 an hour, you bring home that $400.
All right. So, all these comments here tell us that these people truly don't understand the fair tax. And we really would hope that I think starting in January, we need to pay more attention to fair tax. I don't know if you can answer these folks. I'm not sure if you can send a look. Please study, maybe get this book or so forth, and please study the fair tax, and I think you'll find...
The fair thinkers will.
Yeah.
I mean, the demagogues that just want to throw Molotov cocktails, you don't even going to mess with them. You're never going to make that. Yeah. But if we can educate people who are willing to be educated about what the fair tax actually does, there's nobody in this. Again, it crosses political ideology. You don't have to be a conservative to like having more money in your paycheck. Progressives like more money in their paycheck as well.
Yeah.
And that is what the fair tax will do.
Yeah.
Not everybody In fact, I don't think anybody really enjoys filling out an income tax return. That doesn't. That's not tied to your political ideology. I don't like to fill them out. Liberal friends I know don't like to fill them out. The FAIRtax gets rid of tax returns. No postcards, no nothing. No tax returns ever with the FAIRtax because it's paid anonymously at the cash register and it's included in the price of the things you buy. It's extremely difficult to evade.
And since in January the Democrats are going to take over the leadership of the House, I think you and I will have to do another episode on why Democrats will like the FAIRtax, and we've got some good information here from progressives who have studied the FAIRtax and say they really like it.
Yeah, we got a comment from one on our last week's show, and we appreciate that. And so that's
I will tell you, though, I was looking at PopVox, looking for I found this on both the House side and the Senate side, this really lengthy explanation of why they like the FAIRtax, and it was from somebody but with the handle of JWally002.
All right. Well,
we know who that is.
We're just about done with this episode of FAIRtax Power Radio. Time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it?
Don't forget the logo store. That's where you get these, these scrolling banners. You take this to a town hall and ask your Congress critter why they're not a co-sponsor.
You got 2 years to get one of these.
And information cards, the business cards with the information in the front and the prebate schedule on the back. Buy a bunch of pens with the FAIRtax information, and when you go to the restaurant and you sign the check, leave the pen. Leave the pen so somebody else can see it. And these pins and so forth. And, of course, there's our good old whatever it is. It's handy, but it's got FAIRtax. You can buy these and give them away to your grandchildren or whatever. Good information. Pens, hats, shirts, all kinds of stuff. FAIRtaxlogostore.org. FAIRtaxlogostore.org.
And again, we encourage people to write us at thefairtaxguys@gmail.com and leave us a comment on our Facebook page. And that's going to wrap up this edition of FAIRtax Power Radio. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
We are, try this again, the FAIRtax Guys, reminding you again that the FAIRtax is America's big solution, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
Oh, these income tax forms are way too complicated. There's got to be a better way. Who are you?
We're the FAIRtax Guys.
We've got a big solution for you.
What's that?
It's the FAIRtax. Completely eliminates the federal income tax system as we know it. No more withholding, no more payroll taxes, no more tax returns ever, no more IRS. All gone. And I guarantee you, once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
Yeah.
We got to get ready.